I mean, I've always been interested in nature.
Kind of Mother Nature's perfect animal,
Seeing Nile crocodiles and being kind of terrified.
Welcome to the Nature Talks podcast. Welcome to Nature Talks podcast, the podcast where we explore the incredible world of biodiversity conservation and environmental stewardship. I'm your host, Irfan Firozi, a Bachelor of Science student at Monash University, and today we're joined by someone who has spent working on the ground to protect some of the most iconic species in the world. Our guest today is Sunny Shah, a wildlife conservationist, naturalist, and of course, a true pioneer in the field of tigers and big cat conservation. And Sunny has dedicated his career to studying and protecting tigers, lions, and other species across India through innovative conservation efforts and community-driven initiatives. Sunny, it's a true pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. Sharing this platform with you and sharing my knowledge, my experiences with your audience.
Let's start from the very beginning, Sunny. You have had quite a journey in the field of wildlife conservation. Can you tell us what inspired you basically to get into conservation in the first place? And was there a pivotal moment or experience that pushed you to work with, let's say, wildlife and so on?
It's this question I've been facing since last 15, 16 years of my conservation career, and honestly, when I got opportunity to work in line of conservation, there were no specific kick or something that ignited me to jump into this line. However, my journey into wildlife conservation was mostly driven by my deep fascination for nature, and that I have garnered from the period of my post-graduation. And before that, I was just like every other young boys studying in college and having their best time with their friends and other sports activity. I used to do lots of outdoors with my friends, and at that time the thought and the process was just enjoying the nature at its base, not going specific for any species or nothing. But when doing my dissertation, I've got opportunity to work on the vultures, and at that time the 90% of vulture population was on decline due to some veterinary drugs, mainly diclofenac and all. And I thought this is the subject that I should study. I should just go behind it, and that has ignited the thought in my mind that I should do something in a wildlife conservation. I should pursue my career, and from that day, my journey started. Working as a dissertation student on vultures to become a conservation professional, and started working on multifaceted issues aligned with the big cat conservation, especially tigers, leopards, and the Asiatic lions. So those experiences made me realize how a fragile ecosystem is. It's not like what we are reading, we are seeing, and what actually is happening on ground. It's completely different. And from that point, I thought I will dedicate my career, my life, to protect this big cats, overall their habitat, and make my actions more inclusive for all the wildlife.
That's amazing. That's indeed a very unique, touching story, because I can truly relate with you. People think that, okay, nature is very strong. I mean, yeah, it is when we give it a chance, but it is overall a very, very fragile system that we too depend on. And talking about this, I noticed that you mentioned all of big cats, and I know you're very passionate about them. So you have done groundbreaking work in studying tiger dispersal, based on what I know, and creating wildlife corridors, particularly in the western and central regions of India. And of course, I spoke in TEDx once about rewilding, and one of those aspects was about wildlife corridors and so on. So why are wildlife corridors, per se, so crucial for tigers' populations, and what are the main challenges that these corridors face today?
Yeah, so as this term corridor comes in a discussion, it has application in any field, whether you go with the construction or interior designing or architect. The people use terms corridors, which is just connecting two areas. Like, let's say for the people into the architect and engineering, the corridor that connects their bedroom to their balcony, and they walk on these corridors to have a leisure time at their houses. While in the wildlife, the corridors are very crucial, which is definitely don't people don't see it tangible way. There are no immediate success of maintaining corridors, or there are no immediate results. But like, if we see overall, wildlife corridors are the lifeline for any healthy population of species, for say not only tigers or lions or leopards, but all the species, even small insects that required corridors. And corridor is not necessary that uh, should be a forest. It's a mixed landscape. So there are two type of corridors. One are the stepping stone corridors, where uh, the two parks, for an example, two national park or a sanctuaries or a reserve areas, being connected through small pockets of forest, where the animal do migrate and have a roost, rest, stay there for a small period, and further move on. And there is a corridor that is a linear corridor, which is a contiguous patch of either forest or a mix of forest that includes rivers, streams, agriculture fields. So if we allow them to move between these protected areas through corridors, and help them to like, through maintaining corridors, help them to establish their territories, and that actually help to maintain the genetic diversity of the species. So for an example, if we have a small pocket of forest and your population is keep rising there, there may be and definitely issues of inbreeding depression, where the population with the same gene kept coming up, and that may be an issue in future, that if any disease come, any feline related to feline or canine disease comes, the entire population may wipe out. And not only disease, but any natural calamity. For an example, forest fire. If there is a forest fire, and that pocket is not connected through corridors to any nearing protected area or a habitat, the entire habitat you may lose. So for an example, if we talk about the Gir, so Gir National Park and Sanctuary, earlier it was a small pocket. Now the lions have started, they are radiating outside the national park and sanctuary by using the farmlands and the river streams and establishing their territories. Same with the tigers. In central India and in northwest India, especially Ranthambore Tiger Reserve or Ghana Tiger Reserve or Panch Tiger Reserve, you may see, and you are getting news every other day, that this tiger T19 have walked 400 kilometers from this park to another park. So basically, they use these corridors for their different purposes: for the mating, to establish territory, to have a avoid conflict with other territorial males. So basically, without corridors, this tiger population or any species population become isolated, and that, as I've said, lead to inbreeding, territorial conflicts, and it might also increase the human wildlife interactions, what we call conflict. So this is how the corridors are very important, very significant for the conservation of any species. And in terms of challenges that corridors are facing, see, we are not like, no one is against the development, no one is against the conservation. Our actions, our work uh, should be aligned, should be very thoughtful, mindful, so that we can balance both. Development, it is also very required for the betterment of human life, while conservation is very much required for the betterment and quality of life that human as well as the space we are sharing with the other species. It is required. But for the current time, as soon as the development is going on, the linear infrastructures, mainly for say power lines, railway tracks, dams, these infrastructures, that the development happening, that's a big challenge for the corridor conservation. For the human encroachment, as you know, India is a very populated country, and in for the betterment, for the to expand their agriculture practices, the people are encroaching the areas which are part of crucial corridors, and in India, many corridors, almost I think 99.99% corridors exist on a land which is shared with the local communities, and that create conflicts. So when, for an example, tiger or lion moves through these areas, the conflict occurs. We are also reading and we are also seeing the news of the attack by a tiger on a human. That's not it's not that the tiger intend to attack, but those are the accidental encounters where someone is doing nature's call or working on their agriculture field, and animal is moving and they tease them, shout them, and in a self defense they may charge and move on. So those are the challenges that corridors facing, mainly due to two reasons: the infrastructure development and the encroachment on the lands.
I see. I mean, talking about, the wildlife corridors, it sounds like a huge monumental task itself, And I remember, reading about different papers and so on. One thing which India is doing in a very unique aspect is their big cat populations, because like Asian lions, they're only found in India now, nowhere else. The lions are boosting in numbers. So talking about that, of course, it's because of monumental people like yourself that are helping these wild places. Can you tell us about a success story where these corridors have made a real impact on the tiger populations?
Oh, there are many. Honestly, there are many. In my this 15, 17 years of career, I have seen, we have monitored and we have personally seen the use of corridors by tigers from one protected area to another protected area, and establish their own territory and flourish there. And that's the reason, if you see the recent All India Tiger estimation and upload for the numbers from the global community, is very fascinating story. So if I'll go with the specific example, my last dedicated work for more than 5 years was on the corridors from northwest India, and the source population site that we used to consider was Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. And from that tiger reserve, we have identified more than two corridors. One was going from the south edge to the further south towards the another tiger reserve, which is known as Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve. And one tiger reserve was going towards northeast of Ranthambore Tiger Reserve, uh, uh, connecting through Kela Devi Wildlife Sanctuary in the north and further crossing the state borders and reaching up to the Kuno Palpur Wildlife Division, where we have newly established cheetah population now. The cheetah been introduced at that place. So in for that 5 to 6 years long work on the corridors, we used to monitor the wildlife every day through putting camera traps, to communicating with the locals, shepherds, and all. And there were successful migration happen of the tigers in those areas. And one of the iconic and very famous tiger from Ranthambore, his name was Sultan, and he actually walked this more than 120 kilometer and established his territory in Kala Devi Wildlife Sanctuary. And later on, he found a female there. And as per my knowledge, for the current, like today, I don't know what's his status and the things. But last, what I heard from the news and the people who worked with me, that male tiger has established his territory and had a litter of I think three cubs. And now this Kalahari Wildlife Sanctuary, which used to be with zero tigers, now having 6+ tigers. And same with the corridors going from Ranthambore to the south, which is connecting to Mukundra Hills Tiger Reserve, and there was a sanctuary in between, Ramgarh Visdhari Wildlife Sanctuary. So that has also got a tigers from Ranthambore through these corridors, and these areas now have, I think, more than 5 tigers separately. So, in India, there are success stories of corridors, whether you say the North India, where you have a source population sites like Jim Corbett, or in a Central India, where you have sites like Bandhavgarh, a Panna Tiger Reserve, or a Kanha Tiger Reserve. All these tiger reserves have a very functional ecological corridors, and these corridors are helping to have a genetic diversity in terms of tiger population, and this will help create a viable tiger population. It may reach to one point, but definitely it is helping to maintain the diversity of tigers in this mainland India.
That's amazing. You spoke about Sultan, who's, of course, I have read about his story. It's pretty famous. He's one of the tigers in Ranthambore, and I think his code was T72, and he's, I think,
Yeah.
5 years old now. So it's amazing, especially when you spoke about how you're involving communities also in your work. So speaking of communities per se, you have had a lot of success working with local communities, and of course sometimes conflicts, to restore habitats and engage them in conservation efforts. So can you walk us, let's say, through some of your experiences working with communities and the challenges you have faced, working with them?
This is like working with communities is, I always say, it's a two-way sword. So like touching any side, you may get cut. Uh, so and another thing is that they are the first stakeholders. So without their support, without involving them, without any collective efforts, you cannot achieve conservation. And especially in countries like India, where you have a human habitation every kilometer. And this is not only common for India, but all around the world. Without involvement of the communities, you wouldn't have a significant conservation achievement. So there were challenges and there are success stories. Challenges are very, I would say, it's intangible. It's like, for an example, a female, a mother who have lost her child in a leopard attack. And if I'll go to her and I'll tell her that let's save leopard, how would her reaction to me? She will definitely slap me. That uh, you stupid! I have lost my child in a leopard conflict, and how could you tell me that let's save leopard? So you have to develop, and your efforts must be aligned with their needs. So I'll start with an example. Like in India, we have a system which we called compensation schemes if livestock been depredated by any big cat. So initially, those whenever depredation occurs, the shepherd or a livestock owner used to complain to the state forest department, and state forest department do their due diligence process and give them some money so that they have some financial backup. But that money was not significant. It is very small amount. So what we have done, we have started with an ex gratia compensation, as well as encourage them to insure their livestock, so that if their livestock, whether they are died by any natural cause or been depredated by a wildlife, they get a significant amount so that it can compensate and help them to buy new one. Now, ex gratia, in that we made a process that when it used to happen, the typical process with the state government used to take days and days, more than a month, 3 months. So in that case, what used to happen, the person who have lost the livestock have a retaliation feeling, and they used to poison the carcass. And we know that these cats are very possessive of their kill, and they seldom visit the carcass to finish their food. And in that process, when the livestock owner do poisoning, the carcass has been eaten by big cats, especially tigers or lions, and they die. So to control this retaliation feeling, it's like it's now a behavior change. You have to play with their mental agony. So you have to. So we have started giving them money immediately, a small amount, maybe 5,000 Indian rupees, so that their retaliation feeling, their anger calm down. And then we ask them to do, we help them. Basically, we act as a bridge between the state machinery and the deceased one, the kin deceased one. And with that tactics, we have achieved a fantastic role. So now, like, you may if you get access to the data, and there are lots of research done around it. So compared to like 10 years back, we have had many cases of poisoning. Now if we see in last 10-15 years, those cases been drastically declined. So I consider that the ex gratia compensation, insurance, and constant awareness has helped us to achieve the this issue, close this issue for a very in a very short time. And that's one of the achievement that I can see while working with communities.
That's amazing, because exactly, communities are key, and the role that you're playing in awareness is huge. I mean, this episode itself that people are listening to is a huge awareness for the issues, because I know in most countries in Asia, especially in India, people have a lot of wildlife conflicts. We have with elephants, we have with countless bears and so on. But something which I notice is amazing about your project and about the work of India as a whole is, of course, speaking of the lions. because they vanished throughout the countries they were once in, Persia and so on. So let's talk about Asiatic lions per se. These creatures are confined to a single population, of course, in Gir National Park. And what do you see as the biggest challenges in securing their future, and what steps should be taken to ensure their long-term survival, let's say?
So it's with the Asiatic lion finding the new home from current geographical range and far away from current geographical range. It's been in discussion, I think, since last 100 years. And though it has been not happened, but we have seen very good rise in their population. The current challenge is their wide dispersal from the source population areas. If you see the last 2020 lion estimation, there is a number that is saying that entire Gir landscape that we call, which is more than 30,000 square kilometer, it's almost like one European country, and having say 600 plus lions. And if we see the Gir National Park and Sanctuary, which may accommodate out of this 600, 700, 30% or 40%, not more than that, lions there. So raised lions are distributed in the neighboring protected areas where they have been migrated through corridors. So there are 40-50 in Girnar Wildlife Sanctuary, which is just 50-60 kilometer. Few recent dispersal happen in a Barda sanctuary, which is in a neighboring district, Porbandar, and many of the sub-adults and the males and some small prides been dispersed towards the coastal area of the Gujarat, which is again 80 to 100 kilometer from the source population site. So the bigger challenge is the human wildlife conflict, human lion conflict, and that is in terms of the people are curious to see the animal. It's not like they wanted to hunt them down or kill them down. There are people who have done studies that the lion population which are dispersing through their farmlands, they have a indirect intangible benefit, like the crop breeding has been drastically reduced by wild boars and the blue bulls because of the presence of lions in their farm areas. So the conflict is more towards watching these lions in a crowd, using torch to see them, and shooing them away from the kill that they have done, and all this. So conflict is there. So definitely we have to see this conflict in a different way. It is not that typical conflict that is happening in North India or Central India, where there is a death of humans or the small kids. Here the conflict is a fight between the I would say holistic tourism and the entertainment tourism that has been encouraged by locals. Secondly, definitely, as we discussed, the inbreeding, we have seen some diseases been prevalent earlier, like canine distemper, and because of that we have lost many lions, and this has been in news around 2018. And yes, in terms of Asiatic lions, these two things, the human-lion conflict and interaction, and the disease. So we need to identify geographically far area to repopulate them again, and have multiple pockets of healthy lion population. And within the Gir, we need to have these corridors very functional and very intact from other human development activities. Maybe no industries, no mining, no highways, nothing. And this is how we can have a healthy population even within the Gir landscape for the long-term survival of Asiatic lions.
Yep, true. I do agree because I saw a few documentaries in which the Asian lions completely work with other species in the ecosystem. Really important. And you mentioned in your talk about the Asian lions about tourism. So as someone I know who has helped develop wildlife tourism models in conservation corridors, what role do you think ecotourism and people like, let's say, myself or others abroad and in India can play in supporting, conservation efforts, and how can it be made more, let's say, sustainable?
See, the major challenge in ecotourism. So if we see this term ecotourism, it has been thought in India to support two stakeholders of the society. The first is the people living near wildlife sanctuaries and near wildlife, and second is wildlife itself. So when we talk about ecotourism, so we have a lots of wildlife managers. We have an entire machinery, the state machinery and the central machinery in work to manage the tourism. But my argument is the first stakeholders, the community who live 24/7 in and around forest area, who may lose their keens, who may lose their farms due to increasing wildlife and the prey. So the best thing that people can do is encouraging and promoting sustainable traveling to this area. And if I wanted to do some immediate surgery or immediate recommendations, that under the ecotourism, the people living around should be trained in three sectors. One is they can be a good communicator, storyteller, field guides, and trackers. And second is the people should be trained on the wildlife hospitality. So you don't need to import anyone from the city or from other state. You have to encourage, train, groom, and build capacity of the locals so that they can run their own hotels, they can run their own homestays, or they can work with other hotels been already established there, and promoting like 90% locals to manage these resorts, these safari facilities, or driving or guiding, and it should be inclusive. So that is what I believe. So these two things, if anybody wants to do, so for the people like you or your audience who are traveling multiple areas, so they just stick to the sustainable practices. And secondly, if somebody wants to invest their money or invest through an organization, they should work on ecotourism, but under very specific niche, which actually aims to build capacity of locals so that they can get a decent job within their resort and give a best hospitality to the visitors.
That's amazing. I mean, it's true, one of the terms that we always talk about, many conservationists talk about, is how with the return of biodiversity, we can have many jobs and before didn't exist.
Yeah.
Of course, even for myself, when we talk about conservation biodiversity, there's a point of being hopeful and hopeless at the same time. So looking forward, what do you believe are the most urgent steps that need to be taken to protect big cats or India's wildlife, let's say just tigers, lions, in of course the next coming decades?
Uh, uh, I've seen, see, when in 2006, when I was about to complete my studies, and at that time there were advertisement and dialogue all around media that India is left with 1,000 tigers, and same time there were talks that the Gir Gujarat is left with just 300 lions. Now I'll see my journey as well as like these many years in 2025. Now we are talking about the 4,000 plus tigers and 600 plus lions. So in my earlier discussion, I have said that the development and conservation should be side by side. That one shouldn't get more highlight. So for me now, all the people into the wildlife conservation and wildlife managers, even the policy advocacy people should see this thing in terms of management. Now it's time to manage your population. Now it's time to manage your this thing, the park and its habitat, especially the habitat. So, if you have a manageable population, then you can keep this species for a long time in that area. If population keep rising, the conflict may change the face, but conflict will be there. And if you see the last decades, recruitment of the species versus the death of species, it is almostly going side by side. So here the challenge is to wildlife management, a species management. How do you manage the rise in a population? So that is what I want to work on and encourage to people think on this line. Now we have to move on increasing, like working on livelihood and working on that old school human wildlife conflict issues. We have to see the conflict now with a different lens. Conflict will be having a new face. With the help of social media, most of the Indians and everyone is now much aware about the importance of wildlife and conservation. But the issues with the people living in that area and survival of that species is not that much change. So wildlife management, the population management is a key issue that one has to focus. How you will manage 4,000 tigers, and if it keep growing, how you will manage that.
Exactly true, because especially one thing which humanity has achieved is the awareness. People know that wildlife is important now, but what we are lacking is a solution on how we can integrate it within our societies and our systems, like when we were part of nature many years ago. So to conclude, Sunny, one of our ending interesting parts that we always have in the podcast is the advice or message from our experts. So for the generations, because we've got a huge range of age people who are watching this from 18 onwards out there, so what advice would you give them, or what message would you give on how they can get involved in wildlife management, wildlife conservation, and make, of course, tangible impacts?
Only one advice to the all level of generations: take binoculars in hand, get your shoes, and just go out. You may read news, you may read books, you may listen podcasts. Definitely, it will help you to know, learn, understand things. But until you will not get hands-on experience, until you don't get out on grounds, you will not do much. you will not understand, you will not learn the true gravity of the conservation issues. So I advise all the generations, just go out, enjoy birding, go out in different areas, watch birds, watch animal, talk to people, learn their perception towards the wildlife. It will add more value to increase their knowledge for the wildlife and its habitat. So just enjoy the field, go out.
It is very true, because exactly, being out there, being a part of, citizen science programs and so on is very important, gets you up close with nature. And Sunny, it has been an absolute privilege to have you on the show itself. Thank you so much for joining, and your work is truly inspiring. And I know our listeners have learned a lot today, as I did. So, of course, we will share Mr. Sunny's work in the description and so on, about different social medias and how you all can be involved with his current and future projects. And you can also check my website for more information on the the services and the social media and the contacts of different of our guests that you have had. And so awesome. So to all our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Nature Talks on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. And don't forget to leave us a review, and let's keep working together to protect our planet's incredible biodiversity. See you all in the next episode.
I mean, I've always been interested in nature.
Kind of Mother Nature's perfect animal,
Seeing Nile crocodiles and being kind of terrified.
Welcome to the Nature Talks podcast.